I'm really glad to be here to discuss this topic of being money smart in the current economy. I'm currently sharing my slides, and I'd like you to confirm, OPP, that you can see my slide.
Yes, we can see your slides. You can see.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, wonderful. I also want to thank Live Your Dream Enterprises Limited for giving me the opportunity to address you this very chilly morning here in Nairobi. Now, how do I advance these slides? That's right. So what economic crisis are we talking about? We are talking about the devaluation of the Kenya shillings, which now exchanges at about 150 Kenya shillings to $1 US. And just last year, we were around 110, 100. The other thing is that our country has debt repayment obligations, which have to be paid at the new exchange rate. These debts were onboarded when the exchange rate was favorable to the Kenya shilling, but now we have to repay these debts at a higher rate. Additionally, we have a Euro bond which is maturing in 2024, and our government has to pay those people who invested in it. Now, you are all aware, in fact, Jeremiah Rugunya took us through the Finance Bill 2023 and how it is going to affect small business owners and professionals among our number. The upshot of this bill is that we have a higher tax burden. Now, within 1 year, it's costing us 30% more to do our household purchases. Now, additionally, what this means is that we find that enterprises, manufacturers, factories are downsizing, or they are employing people on contract, sometimes a daily contract, and this leads to challenges in income generation. Additionally, when we don't generate enough income and we are used to exercising a spending culture. Noel will agree with me that especially ladies and including gentlemen have got this habit of spending money on consumables. For example, shoes. I'd like to ask all the ladies in the room how many pairs of shoes they bought this month, and I'm sure that that number is going to shock us. Now, what this means as well is that when our income has gone down, we cannot save enough. We're not saving enough. So that's how the economic crisis impacts you at household level. However, besides all the risks that this economic crisis brings, there are some opportunities for an upright Kenyan to grab during this season. And we shall be discussing this, and I'd love to hear your views on what opportunities do we have. We've just listened to Christine explaining to us how the power of giving, having a CSR, like this is a CSR. This Power Monday is a CSR of Live Your Dream. We do not make any money out of this, right? But there's this rule about when you give with one hand, you will receive with two hands. So try and benefit from that rule. Look around you, look at people who are struggling, and maybe give them a helping hand. So if we move to the next slide, the next slide is about budgeting and saving tips. So I've done a budget on the left-hand side here. I talked about giving, and one of the first things that you should do, and I'm from the Christian faith, is you must give back to God. Okay, so you will tithe typically 10%. 10% of your after-tax income should go to God. Some people say that you give 10% even before the tax, before you've deducted the tax. But you know the way this new tax regimen is, where we're doing things like turnover tax, we're doing installment tax. Every month you pay VAT, and you can decide what you have left over to give to God, but let it be 10%. Additionally, you are probably paying for somebody's education, a child's education, children's education, and your own education. This should be about 20%. Then there is housing, which is 15%. Some people say 20%, but I've taken housing at 15% and clothing at 5%. Now, food is 10%, travel is 10%, and one is expected to save 20% of your income. And healthcare is supposed to take 10%. Now, if you add all these numbers up, let me ask OPP, do they come up to 100 OPP?
They're about close. That is 30, 45, 50, yes, 20, 100%.
Okay, so you will notice that there is, I have forgotten to include entertainment. How do you entertain yourself? How do you go?
Yeah, I was about to ask that where does that trip to Malaysia?
Where does that trip to Malaysia fit in? Because this trouble of 10% is what I refer to as your daily travel expenses, as you go about your business, as you go to work, come back, and so on. But that trip to Malaysia, one has to save for it. Okay, one has to save for it in a special purpose here. Similarly, your visit to your shags or your rural area has to be saved, but you will know where to extract this from. Maybe you go on a diet for a few days in a week or in a month, and you save. Now, how do we save? Now, we need to save by reducing our spending and increasing our savings. So I told you about skipping some of your favorite treats, skipping, buying 5 pairs of shoes this month and reducing it down to about 1 pair, so that you have more money to save. Now, additionally, you can track your expenses. You know, it is very difficult to track down to the last shilling where your money is going. Now, what you could do is you could get an app on your phone, and one of them is called Spendy, which helps you to track your spending and know where to adjust so that you can save more. Now, there are some things which are non-negotiable. One of them is called an emergency fund. An emergency fund should be set at 6 times your total domestic monthly expenses. So if your monthly expenses are 100,000, you should be trying to build up your emergency fund to 600,000, so that if anything happens, you've got 6 months to carry you. You've got 6 months worth of money to carry you on. Now, an opportunity fund is 10 times your monthly expenses. Now, an opportunity fund is, we talked about opportunities in this season. Okay, you will find that people who have not planned their personal finances very well are beginning to sell their things. They're beginning to sell that extra cooker, that extra fridge, that extra piece of land. Now, if you had an opportunity fund, let's say your monthly expenses are 100,000 and you had a million shillings in your opportunity fund, you could grab some of those opportunities. Additionally, one has to save in the National Social Security Fund and also in a pension fund, okay? Because we're assuming that you're on the right track, that an NSSF will not be enough to sustain you when you are retired. You will need to build up a pension fund. So what I like telling people is that assume you will retire at 55 or 60 or 65, okay? And assume you're going to live up to 85. So you take your monthly expenses today, multiply them by 12 by 20, okay? That is the kind of pension fund that you should be working to build. If you are employed, you know that 7.5% of your salary is deducted from you and sent into a pension fund if your employer has a pension fund for employees. And their employer will contribute another 7.5%. So that means 15% of your income is being saved automatically in a pension fund. Now, in this season, you may find that the dynamics of the employment market will change. You may be laid off. You may be, you may join a better employer. Do not forget to transfer your pension fund from your previous employer to your next employer or to an independent pension plan with one of the insurance companies or pension fund managers. Now, additionally, you could save for what we call endowment funds. So you know that your child is in grade 6, and a couple of years down the line, they will be going to university. And the way things are going, you will have to pay for that university education. So if your child is very young, you could save a little bit in something we call an endowment policy, so that when that child reaches 18 and they're joining university, there is some money for their university education. So let's move on to the next. Now, right now, everybody in this audience is engaged in an active, in generating income from some activity, what we call active income, okay? Now, as you are generating income from active income, you should be also developing what we call sources of passive income. In other words, you could be sleeping here in Nairobi, and your investments in the New York Stock Exchange are earning you money while you are asleep. Okay, So there on the left-hand side of this slide, you see what are the things to avoid. In this particular season, avoid scams. So if the deal sounds too good, okay, don't go for it. So when somebody offers you a very high return on investment, just don't go for it. Okay, there's a lot of frauds and Ponzi schemes. We have land buying companies. You know, Kenyans love to own land, and we have land buying companies tell you save with us, and then you'll get a plot of land and so on. Be very wary. Talk to somebody. One of the best people to talk with is talk to your spouse. Okay, talk to your spouse first, then talk to others, other friends who are in the same space as you, and those who are even in a higher space than you. They will tell you what's a Ponzi scheme and what is not. Now, there are some things in this season to take advantage of. And if you look on the right of my slide, you will notice that the share prices on the Nairobi Stock Exchange have reduced. So this is the time to take advantage of the low share prices on those companies which are performing very well, which have given good dividends, and which seem to be on an upward trajectory. If we look at our country here, you'll notice that in this crisis, it seems that the banks seem to be doing very well. They have returned very good profits. They have paid a lot of tax to government. They've issued dividends which are quite handsome. And could this be the time, now that they've given out dividends, could this be the time to invest in some of those shares? Now, additionally, you'll notice that some banks are offering you free transaction. So you can transfer money from your bank to M-Pesa with no transaction fees. So take advantage of that. And one such bank is I&M Bank. And I have a disclaimer that I don't bank with them. Maybe this is the time to shift, but however, that's a story for another day. Now, I talked about developing sources of passive income. And one does this by developing what we call an investment portfolio. So as you go into this, or as you go into this afresh in this season, I would really advise you to learn how to read financial statements. And perhaps the best place to start would be with your own business. Learn to read those financial statements which are prepared for you by accountants and auditors. We're now in the month of June, and you should have, as a member of the PowerMonday team, you should have already paid your income tax for the year 2022. And if you have, and if you haven't, this is the time to go back to your accounts, look at them and read those financial statements. Then pick on a company which you have probably invested in or which you plan to invest in and look at their financial statements. Because being able to read a financial statement will help you to invest in companies which will give you a good return on investment. Now remember that especially shares, it's a long game. You're not buying today to sell tomorrow. It's a long game. You're buying on the cheap today to wait as the company gains in value and sell at a later date. So one has to also invest in companies which demonstrate sound management and profitability. So it's not just about profit, it's about sound management. Then the other thing that besides shares, some Kenyans are beginning to invest in gold, which is being traded on the floor of the Nairobi Stock Exchange. So you're not going to buy a kilo of gold, you're going to buy a small fraction of 100 grams of gold, right? And hold on to those stocks, because the price of gold and precious metals is going up. Then we have something called exchange traded funds, which is basically a basket of shares which are put into an exchange traded fund, and you can trade in those. Then there are what we call fixed income securities, which are bonds, which here in Kenya we know about government bonds, and Kenyan investors as well as foreign investors have shied away from investment bonds. You know, those long-term bonds which pay you back after 20 years. They are going in for short-term bonds because of the kind of credit rating we have as a country right now. So additionally, there are private companies which can release bonds on the stock exchange in order to raise funds. You could buy bonds from those companies. And then, of course, there's cryptocurrency, which very many people don't understand, and which I always advise, as Noel will tell you, is that you must understand the blockchain and you must understand cryptocurrency before you invest in it, just like any other investment vehicle. So that's what I had to say about diversifying your portfolio. Now, I want to believe that you are typing some questions inside of the chat, because I'm going to ask Noel to read out those questions at the end of this session so that I can answer any questions you have. As I take a short breath, let's move to the next slide, which is about the elephant in the room. It's called debt management. Now, debt is defined as good debt and bad debt. So good debt is debt which is helping you progress in your business and in your life, and which you can pay, which you are able to pay. Bad debt is that debt which you cannot repay. Okay? Now, typically, when you're taking on debt, your debt repayment, if it's approaching 30% of what you earn per month from all sources, that is considered bad debt. And if you go to a bank or a financial institution and they find that you're already servicing too much debt, they're unlikely to share that money with you. So my advice is try and manage your debts if you have them. So the first thing you could do is list down all your debts. List them all down in order of start with the biggest one and go down to the smallest one. Now, what you could do is you could reduce and eliminate your debts. There are several ways of reducing and eliminating debt, but the one which I prefer is called the snowball method. So what you do is you've listed down all your debts. Let us say you owe the kiosk owner down the street some 5,000 shillings, right? And then you owe somebody else something else. You owe a hire purchase company something else. You owe the bank so much. First of all, try and get rid of that smallest debt, okay? And the amount of money that you have allocated to repaying your debts, you subtract that smallest debt. Okay, let's say you subtract that smallest debt, and when you finished paying that one, whatever you are paying to that one, you pay a little bit to the other people whom you owe money. You can, if you have not understood this, you can Google it. It's called the snowball method of debt management. Additionally, I would like you to try and negotiate with those people whom you owe money, especially banks. Negotiate reduced interest rates, and also negotiate with, offer them a payment plan. Don't run away from them, but keep talking to them. Keep managing that relationship. I would also like to suggest that you could consolidate all your debt. So all your major debts with banks and so on, you and financial institutions, you could consolidate all of it and sell it off to another bank or finance institution. And there are some banks which are offering to do this for you. So we talked about risks and opportunities during this season. It's a good idea to weigh the risks involved in taking on any debt that is any debt finance that is offered to you. You will see advertisements coming to you on your phone, sometimes unsolicited, telling you to bring your logbook or bring your laptop and get a loan. Keep away from those, because those are high risk debts that you're taking on. And the people who are offering you that debt finance are really not interested in checking out your credit worthiness. They are more interested in repossessing that asset, which will act as a security for that particular loan they're giving you. So opportunities for debt management, they are there, and you should explore them. I would really like to suggest that you attend debt management classes. If you're in serious debt, you could attend financial literacy classes, because in this season, you will agree with me, OPP, because you're in the space of fintech, that most fintech developments are around the area of personal finance, because there's a very strong connection between personal finance and business finance. We are all being encouraged to move into small business, and we are all part of something that is called the hustler economy, which means besides holding down to a job, you should be having several side hustles. But all those income generating activities are directly correlated with your personal financial management. So charity starts at home. Let's learn how to manage our finances at a personal level, then extend that to a business level, and make sure that we are compliant in that we are paying for our taxes, that we are paying for our licenses, that we are compliant with the law of the land. And good things will follow us. Now, especially with debt, there's a friend of mine who is a debt management expert, and he was telling us the case of a policeman who was in so much debt that, and he called him up in the wee hours of the morning, like 2 o'clock in the morning, saying that he is so stressed that he felt like committing suicide. And so my debt management friend had to talk to him, talk him out of committing suicide, because what debt is doing is that it is causing friction in homes between spouses, and it's causing some people to even want to take their own lives. So I believe we might have some counselors in the room here. You could see a counselor and look for a debt management coach to walk with you out of debt, because there is no problem under the sun that cannot be solved, okay, with good faith and a strong resolve. You could hire a debt management expert, and you could attend financial literacy and debt management classes. And I touch on this subject in a little way in my wealth mastery class for professionals and small business owners. So if you're interested, you could get in touch with me, okay? I don't do this pro bono. I will ask you to pay some small money so that I can pay for my internet and my office rent and so on, because just like you, I am a small business and I need your support. So at this juncture, I'd like to say thank you very much. Those are my details over there. And in case you want to get in touch with me for a free discovery call about how you can plug into some of my service offerings, because I also offer one-on-one coaching for wealth and career development. So with those remarks, over to you, Noel.
Thank you so much, Dr. Melvin. I mean, we can't debate it. Dr. Melvin has like a wealth of knowledge, my goodness. So onto questions. But before I start with the questions, Dr. Melvin, please, shoes is where we draw the line. Shoes is where we draw the line.
I use that example just because I know that you are the proprietor of Big Shoes.
Thank you.
And
okay, so questions. Offering or support to a loved one, like mom or upcoming event for a friend or a sibling, where do you include it on budgeting?
Right. Now that one actually is supposed to come from something that we call entertainment, okay? It's something that's supposed to come from entertainment. What I mean is that all those funeral expenses, hospital expenses, you must have a budget for it, right? Now, it's very important for you to give back to your family. And what I do is I cut a little bit from all those other, what are they called? Income and budget lines that you have, and keep some money to give back to your parents or your siblings whom you want to support. But you need to draw the line about how many people you can support in a month. So what if you have a budget of maybe 5,000 or 10,000 shillings to give away? Once it's exhausted, you have to tell somebody it will have to wait for the next month. I hope I've tried to explain that.
Okay, thank you. So apart from banks, which other stocks can one grab at this moment? And in the current economic situation in the country, will it be advisable to invest in infrastructure bonds?
Okay, let me start with the last question because it's the easiest one. Given the way our government is taking on additional debt, and given the way that our ratings have gone down, I would not invest in an infrastructural bond. I would invest in a 3-month treasury bill, okay? Something short term. Now, the other question was, besides banks, what do you invest in? So I would look at, generally it seems that the financial sector seems to be doing pretty well, including a couple of insurance companies, but most insurance companies are on shaky ground. You'll agree with me. So there are some companies in the agricultural sector which seem to show promise. You know, things like Kakuzi, the tea companies, we don't know where they are heading because there seems to be a lot of unrest in the tea industry. So one needs to be a bit careful in that regard. Now, why are you sticking to the Nairobi Stock Exchange? Why can't you go to the New York Stock Exchange or the London Stock Exchange or the Hong Kong Stock Exchange? Why OPP is in tech? He could be buying, is it called NVIDIA stocks? He uses Microsoft all the time. Does he own shares of Microsoft? He uses Facebook every day. Could he be a shareholder in those companies? Okay, if they're doing well, we are heading to something called the metaverse. So think about tech and think about pharma as areas to invest in. Not necessarily in Kenya. You could invest anywhere in the world on any stock exchange. And watch things very carefully on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, because some of those companies are not going anywhere. They're here. There's a company called Umeme. You might have heard of Umeme. They seem to be doing very well, okay? Whereas you'll notice that Kenya Airways, their shares seem to be very depressed right now. But just be mindful. You could buy Stanbic. You could buy you could buy ABSA. You could buy Standard Chartered. These are just suggestions for you. Read the financial statements. Read the what are they called, the annual reports, and you could get a guideline on where to invest. Back to you, Noel.
Okay, so with the current economic cash crunch, what do you do when you follow your debtors who keep postponing the payments and you also have debts to pay? And then regarding cryptocurrencies, what is your take on the Bitcoin by Machankura that you can get via USSD? How about WorldCoin? I think I would also want more info on cryptocurrencies. It's something that I think of late I'm so much drawn into, and I've been doing research, like a lot of research on it. So I think it's something that I'm also interested in, cryptocurrency.
Okay, so now let me try and get this right. Your first question was?
Debtors, like how do you make these guys to pay your debt? We need us money to also pay debts.
Okay, so now if you found that they're not responding to you, this is the time to, I don't know whether Mwende is in this call. This is the time to get in touch with a lawyer. A lawyer's letter might help, okay? If the debt is large enough. There are some debts you might have to write off, but there are others where you try getting a lawyer, or what are they called? These, you get a lawyer who will then work with an auctioneer and all that stuff so that you get your money back. Because nobody wants to be listed on the CRB at this particular moment in time. Now with cryptocurrency, all these, I don't know which scheme you are talking about, on USSD, because USSD can also be fraudulent, right? What I would do is that I would buy Bitcoin, or small amounts of Bitcoin, if I have the money on a proper exchange that you can trust, because many of these exchanges have also collapsed internationally now, and locally there are some exchanges which are still in business. So you could invest in Bitcoin a little bit through what do you call it? Through a reputable exchange. Now, yeah, I think, can we go to the next question?
Okay, guys.
Dr. Noel,
Someone just called me Dr. Noel. I meant to that. So just to let you know before we go on, just to let you know that we have a WhatsApp group. Oteno Paul Peter has sent there a link down there. He has sent a link if you want to join our WhatsApp group, where we just continue with the conversations that we are having right now. So you can join. Oteno Paul Peter. No, what is your comment on black tax? This is a source of financial strain.
Okay.
And then, how do I hire debt management expert or attend financial literacy if already the debt is causing stress to the point of attempting suicide? I think, Susan, maybe that one I can answer for Dr. Melvin. Just get in touch with Dr. Melvin. He's going to help you on debt management. I kid you not, he is an expert on that. He is going to help you. He is going to help you. So what's your comment on black tax? This is a source of financial strain.
Okay, so first of all, I want to throw that question to that the person who asked it. What do you call black tax according to you? Define.
Yeah, that was Joshua. Joshua, you can tell us about this black tax. Hata mimi nataka kujua. White, black.
Okay, sorry. Good morning. This is where you are supporting your larger family at home. They keep on asking you this fee, the community, where you came from. That is what I'm calling black tax.
Okay, I've got you. Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Melvin, you had tried to address that under entertainment, and I know it's a big deal. It's a big deal more so from some of us who come from some other side of this country. People believe if you are in Nairobi, you should be making more money. And so I know that to an extent, we always, by the end of the day, you realize that you explode the budgetary allocation that you want to put. I always lump them under charity. So tithe, whatever, I put all that under charity. And I always do as much as I can. And the other problem that most of us experience, I don't know about you, Dr. Melvin, and your guys, is enough of us fear blackmail, or how will they take me, or all sorts of things. So you want to participate in everything, and I've seen others going to the extent of borrowing to please other people. It doesn't work well. So in being money smart, you want to know how much can you carry. I always remember this story of, but it's a long story, so I won't put it. But get to know there is this phrase: you can help 10, but you can't carry 3 on your back. So try to know how much you can help and stop it there. Don't mind what they will say. You will still be bad anyway. Because you will help. One day you will be unable to help. That will erase all the goodness you've ever done. Black tax.
Yeah. I'd like to say that this black tax, it's a real burden. It's a real burden on your finances, and especially at this time. So this is a social problem, which you need to sit down with your family and explain to them that being somebody from Nairobi does not necessarily mean that you're earning so much money that you don't know what to do with it. If you show them your budget, okay, this is what I earn and this is what I'm left with. How much of it do you want? They will likely agree with you that you can only afford so much. So that's basically it. I forgot to mention, by the way, OPP, that when you're in severe debt, one of the first things that you should do is sell off things that you don't need or which are superfluous. So if you're in debt and you have a car whose logbook is in your name, sell it. Sell it to offset your debt. Okay? You may not be able to roll down to your village in that car, but you will have got out of a debt of some sort. So that's one of the first things, and it's the most painful. It's the most painful one. In this season as well, do not be very cautious about whom you're guaranteeing for a loan, especially from a SACCO. Okay, because this is a season when very many people are not paying back on time, and that burden will fall on you. Okay.
True, but just to add on that, I always say, give debt what you can afford to lose. If you are going to loan somebody, you're going to give somebody some money, they are claiming they will pay you back. Just try to give what you can afford to lose. Otherwise, you will be in pressure for no good reason. Yes, that is a tip from the top. Many people will not pay back, but they will say tomorrow or on Thursday, some money is stuck, whatever. Just give what you can always afford to lose. If you are giving business debt, that is a service you're offering or product, always ensure you break even before you give. That is, maybe you're going to offer service that is going to have some costs involved. Ensure that at least they pay what will cover the costs. Yeah, so that you are not going to pay for somebody's service. You are giving the service and paying for it. No, it doesn't work like that. So I always advise, please just ensure that you are not paying for somebody's service. You cover your costs, then whatever you can give in debt is your profit. When it comes, it's something that you can always factor into the profit. Good.
OPP, you bring a good point for all the small business owners over here. You need to do, in this season, you need to cut your costs, okay? You need to do a cost analysis and see where you can cut your costs. You need to do a break-even analysis. And as Paul Peter says, you need to ask anybody buying your goods or services to first pay your absolutely necessary break-even costs, isn't it? And the rest can come later. So okay. I think that's a good practice.
Okay, thank you so much. So our media guy is saying, thanks for the great presentation. That is Olale. Debt financing and management is most topical to me. Big question is, banks have bad and doubtful debts that can be written off. Is this advisable for an individual to emulate? And then there's someone that said that has said that it is good to have to have an accountability, which is so good. I think so too. So on to Olale's question.
So Olale's question is that banks have a provision for bad debt. In fact, there is a bank called KCB, which has a very large portfolio of non-performing loans. Okay. Now, as a business owner, you should also have planned for those people who are unlikely to pay you, and be ready, as Otieno Paul Peter says, to write off those debts. So there's a percentage. I think we can use the Pareto principle. 20% of your debts you should have already planned to write them off. But if you never planned and you're forced to write off 20% of your debts, that can be very painful and can probably give you serious problems. And the other question was?
It was a comment, but there are many other questions. Let me just seek clarification on one thing, by the way, which I find interesting. How dependable are these statutory saving schemes like NSSF? How sure can people be that their money will ultimately lead to where it should be? Yeah.
Now this is
including the 3% that is coming up.
Now this is the elephant in the room. We are not sure. You know the crisis in NHIF right now. NSSF, what has happened is that these funds have been traditionally a place that our very government finds it very appropriate to grab. Okay, they use them to pay salaries and to pay all the current expenditure. And you, as a person who has been saving, you can never be sure. In fact, this housing fund is rather controversial, and I particularly am not very happy with the finance the finance bill 2023, and I'm relying on others to go to the streets. Okay, like the rest of you. But in my own way, I'm complaining here in the background.
Somebody said he supports this 100% because people like you and me don't go to the streets. Na sisi ndo tuko na salaries. So actually, let it even go to 10%, because when they call for streets demonstration, the other guys who go don't even have a job. There is no 3% of theirs which is going to be taxed. Like that.
Okay, so someone is asking, what about insurance? Many are avoiding it, yet in most instances, it's meant to alleviate some of this stress. So what about insurance? We have 3 minutes to go. Okay,
I just touched on it rather briefly, but if you're alive, or if you're in a small business, you are every day you face certain risks to your business or to yourself. Now, business is defined as adding value to somebody else's life and managing risk. So if you decide not to manage risk and leave everything up to God or to Sirkal, you may be disappointed, okay? Because faith without action is dead faith, right? So somebody talked about black tax. I have this saying that you're supposed to honor your father and your mother, but honoring them without action, which means black tax, okay, is dishonor. How can you dishonor your father and your mother? So one has to walk a very narrow path in managing risk. And you have to manage it adequately. Now, I'll just give you the example of health insurance, okay? NHIF is now not paid in very many hospitals. So many hospitals are telling you that this NHIF card of yours is worthless. So if you don't have health insurance and you need 2 million shillings to get out of a health crisis, are you going to start looking for a piece of land in Kanyatiang to sell? And how long will it take to turn over that money? So manage your risks prudently. Yeah, that's right. And the thing is that yeah, there's so many questions that I can't answer all of them because I think
yes,
we have
so many questions.
I would suggest that you side chat me. I'm on the group. My number is, you've got them, and we can talk with you. Maybe OPP, you.
Yeah, when if you are in the WhatsApp group, these people, if your questions, and I know many of us maybe still have questions. I just wanted to ask, by the way, is Spendi free? Ama it's payable? You are tracking. I've not used it.
Some of these are free.
Okay.
They are
Good.
free.
Somebody is talking about Kindu Beidalawa, but I don't know. Okay, so.
Kanyadiang,
is it? Kindu.
Kanyadiang. You want to throw in Kanyadiang. Anyway, thank you so much. So I have a question in regards to the chat, but before I go to the question, Odiambo Olale, kindly just prepare. You're the one who is going to give the vote of thanks. There are two people who have called me Dr. Noel. Guys, don't you think like that is a sign? By the way, I've been planning to go and do something in the line of, yeah. So, and then there's someone who has said, Dr. Noel, I need your contact. So I don't know if you mistook me to Dr. Melvin, which will be interesting. I'm Noel, he's Dr. Melvin. So I don't know whose contacts you need. Okay, our media guy, kindly just give a vote of thanks.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Kumekucha. Thank you, Dr. Melvin, for a wonderful presentation, especially on a Monday morning on this week when everybody's talking and thinking about finances, taxation, and all that, and the economy. You've really, really brought things, you made it so simple. Even some of us who fear the issues on finances and especially economic issues. I think we really appreciate it so much. Being my big brother from another mother, you've lived up to our expectation. And like Noel just said a few minutes ago, that somebody is referring to us as a doctor. I think that person means well. All dreams are valid. So, Dr. Melvin, you can chat with one Noel so that you can give her the tips of how to be a doctor, a real one, not the quacks we see with posters all over the place. I'm Dr. So and so from Tanzania, and I can treat all these ailments. So thanks so much, Dr. Melvin, and we look forward to more of those kind of professional information. that you're giving us, you're sharing with us. Thank you so much and be blessed. And for the rest of you, have a blessed day and a blessed